Good morning, everyone. We're starting in about 5 minutes. Just those in the back, feel free to come closer. Don't be afraid, okay? Because we have a lot of seats here in the front. We want to see the faces of people.
We will start in a few seconds. We just have one more speaker trying to find the room, so we'll give him the 1 more minute to find. Otherwise, we will start and hope that he finds the room immediately. Perfect, he made it. Welcome, Vikrant. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming today. We're very happy to see such a full room with such many fresh and smiling faces. We're excited for today's event. My name is Katrin Harvey. I'm the COO of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, and I have the honor of moderating today's session. In the name of the organizers, and here I would really like to list all of them because it's been a group effort. I'm very happy to welcome you here. So the organizers are the YOUNGO Food and Agricultural Working Group, the Ban Ki-moon Center, the International Associations of Students in Agriculture and Related Sciences, IAAS, the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, YPARD, the International Forestry Students Association, IFSA, the World Food Forum, WFF, EIT Food, the Wageningen University and Research, and the World Farmers Organization. So all of these people have worked together to bring you all here today and have a very interesting conversation around the role of women and youth in financing agricultural and climate change programs, especially when it comes to access to finance. So we know that there's always been a lot of commitments and promises around financing for young people and for women, especially in agriculture and in adaptation and climate change, but not many of these promises have actually come to the people who need the support and the financing. We need to really foster the role of women and youth in this and really empower them to access the money and at the same time create the policies and systems and processes to allow them to access the resources that they need. We know, generally speaking, as a community, that especially women and young people have a very hard time accessing finance, very hard time accessing resources, especially if we think, for example, about land rights, and also just access to information and to really make their businesses and their farms, whatever it is, grow and foster. At the Ban Ki-moon Center, women and youth are very much at the core of our work. And as part of our program on elevating agricultural adaptation, where we try to increase commitments by donor governments towards financial support, especially in the light of smallholder farmers, we work very closely with young people to really shape the demands and the needs that we want to bring towards the governments, the donors, but also the recipient country governments. So last year we had a fantastic cohort of 15 young people who developed a demand paper that they then brought to COP27 with 3 concrete demands, and they're all on our website, so please have a look and see what the young people came up with and what they asked their governments and the donor governments to really start implementing and making easier to access. We have a new cohort this year who will be working on something similar, so this is my very vocal invitation to all of you to please apply. We're looking for young people from Africa working on agriculture, and who would support and work with us over the summer to develop a new policy paper, demand paper, that will be a joint decision on what exactly will come out of it, and the application process will start next week, so it's a very timely conversation to have right now. My colleague Angela back there in the red coat is in charge of it, so if you have any questions for afterwards, please go and talk to her. With that, I will stop hogging the microphone and hand over to my very nice partners, Aya and Glindys, to give us a little bit more around their work and introduce us to today's sessions, and also pick your brains a little bit, so we'll have a brainstorming session. Aya, sitting right next to me, is the contact point of the Food and Agricultural Working Group of YOUNGO. She's an agri-food engineer from Morocco and part of the official youth constituency as YOUNGO at UNFCCC, and part of the board of the Associations of Students in Agricultural and Related Sciences. Glindys, over there, she is currently serving as the Network Engagement Manager at the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, YPARD, which is a youth-led organization which supports the meaningful engagement of young people in the field of food and agriculture across 60 countries across the world. So over to you guys to get us through today's intro session.
Hi guys, thank you for being here today. I know that it's now day 3. We might be a little bit tired, but I'm really happy that you're all here today joining us. Before we start our 3 case studies that you're going to see today, really showcasing the work that is being done by farmers, by young people, and also by ministries here, I wanted to start you guys with a Mentimeter. So I would be really happy if you guys can put in the codes, take out your phones. I see laptops, but I want to see cell phones now. And to get the juices flowing, get you guys engaged in the conversations that are going to come after this. I want you guys to give me some answers on how can women and youth contribute to climate change adaptation and sustainable food systems. So I want to see keywords. That's what I want to see. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to do that, more like 40 seconds, so as soon as possible. And then that's going to basically already guide us into our first case study after we do this. So. Okay, I see knowledge and innovation are competing. Okay, fantastic. So you guys can see here that we have innovation, we have knowledge, representation, collaboration, education, and empowerment as some of keywords along others as well. These are all things that you guys will see are things that are already being done by the wonderful panelists. Please. By the wonderful panelists that we have here today. You're going to see a case study on a young person on mobilizing funds for agriculture. You're going to see a wonderful speaker here today that's going to discuss supporting women that are farmers in Kenya. And then, of course, how bilateral and multilateral collaborations are helping to mobilize funds that are necessary, but to also scale up engagement related to agriculture. So thank you. Now I know you're all awake, that you're all here with us. And please stay engaged. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Glindys. I love the many words and the action that we already saw on this Mentimeter. This is fantastic. And thank you so much for contributing. I can tell that we have lots of young people in the room who know how to manage this, and you work with their phones. Great. So next up, we are very happy to show you a short video message from our founder and co-chair, the former Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and talking to you about a little bit more about things that we should be discussing today. So please start the video.
Dear panelists and guests, I'm pleased to be a part of this timely event. The worsening climate crisis is impacting every aspect of our lives. It's further increasing the threat of violent conflict, health issues, and food insecurity. All these global issues have consequences far beyond their immediate impacts, most particularly when it comes to food production. Often, it is those who contributed least to the climate crisis who are suffering the greatest and must adapt most urgently, especially for those who are on the front lines of climate change, such as smallholder farmers. Throughout sub-Saharan Africa and part of Asia, they produce up to 80% of the nation's food. Despite this, and their key role in sustainable development, they only receive 1.7% of total climate finance. If smallholder farmers are to continue to feed our communities, we have a responsibility to build their resilience to climate change especially that of the younger generation. The right investments in research and innovation, smallholders farmers, especially women, indigenous peoples, and youth, can be part of the solution to many of the challenges we face today. In this regard, global champions like the worldwide research group CGIAR need to receive more funding for the acceleration of adaptation in agriculture to ensure food security and to protect biodiversity. Climate change adaptation is an urgent global problem which requires global solutions. World leaders need to drastically step up their efforts for a healthy, sustainable, and prosperous future. We need to see a significant increase in financial and political commitments toward climate adaptation. We must deliver on our high ambition, and we must do so now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think this is a perfect segue for us to actually talk to the young people who have been making this change already. And I'm very, very proud to be part of the stage with these wonderful young people. And I'd like to start with Vikrant Srivastava. He's a climate change professional and professional activist from the Global South in India. He will tell us about how he has been mobilizing funds for climate solutions in the agri-food sector and giving us his case study. Vikrant is not only the CEO of the Nisarg Foundation, an organization that has positively impacted the lives of over 50,000 individuals and has been able to provide grants of over $300,000. He's also part of the UNEP Youth Engagement Mechanism. He's on the Youth Policy Board for the FAO World Food Forum, and he is the contact point for IAAS, the COP campaign on Asia Youth Empowerment. And it's very impressive what he's already been able to achieve, so I'm very excited to hear more about his case studies and how he created access to finance for agri-food people. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Katrin. And first of all, sorry for coming late. We all know we have been juggling here on SBs from here and there. But yeah, thank you. And just a quick introductions of one of my major role is to fill the gap between youth and meaningful youth conversation. So we'll start with a bit introduction or how we're gonna achieve some funds and what are the key initiatives we need to take and what are some of the lackings we might need to improve in some of the local initiatives. Thank you. So again, some of the opportunities what youth have right now and how they can grab them, and some of the measures, strategies on local level, and then how to utilize all those experience and knowledge. A bit introduction you already got, you can just shift that. Can we skip? Thank you. India, crazy country. We must have gone somewhere in India, but if not, we are already thinking when to go to India. But just to let you know, India has a workforce of 50% directly or indirectly working around agriculture at present, and it compromised a direct 44% of total workforce. So you can imagine how impactful agriculture in India and how important it is. And we have been contributing around 15% of GDP, which is gross domestic product for India, which means that it's a key driver for Indian economy. One of the India's achievement is also that it's also largest producer of milk, pulse, spices. We all love spices. So spices, and it's also second largest producer of fruit, vegetable, and wheat. So So this year only we exceed a target of 24 billion, and we are achieving when thinking. So in next 2025 we can cross around 48 something. I'm not sure how will they do that. It's a government prediction, but hopefully we can do. And then one very important point, we just crossed China, which means that we are plus 1.4 billion. And then it's also critical at present and how we provide food security and ensure a healthy nutrition for all. And with 1.4 billion, it also comes with massive of work production, which means that we also emits CO2 and other methanes. So recently, the whole agriculture sector emitted more than 408 MMT, which is about 73% of whole country methane emissions. So you can imagine what we are trying to fight with against. Can we move there? Okay, so what we on working on a ground, when we say we, it means that I have a very good strength of youth working on ground in India, majorly in Maharashtra. Maharashtra is one of the leading states in India on suicidal for the farmers. You can just check in the Google, we are leading on this. So apart from other activities, so again, it's very disappointing also because some of the farmers are being facing to go into the debt just with the loan of around 1,000 USD. Can you imagine 1,000 USD and someone is dying? Okay, so some of the lacks I want to promote here and how we can achieve and promote this is that lack of awareness and availability of fund at local level. And there are not many people, those who are familiar with application process, especially when we are saying on a local level. And the eligibility criteria, the international funding to receive in any nation context, like we have in India, FCRA, it's so tough. You cannot have an FCRA if you are not having a 20 lakhs of revenue. And to get 20 lakhs of revenue, it's also very tough. So this is one of the challenges we are facing. And again, we are also struggling with establishment of collaboration network with partnership, because on local level, we need funds to travel, we need funds to attend and organize an event. So these are some of the challenges we are facing right now on local level. And when you say local level, it's all around the India, and it's all around major parts of Global South too. Insufficient capacity, again, with the fund, with the project development, we face a challenge to build a robust project proposal that can meet the requirement of funders, those who are active in national, regional, or internationally. Yeah, so again, some financial resources. When I'm saying financial resources is it's very crucial at the moment for agriculture and land use, because most of the time when we say climate change and food, so people think that food and agriculture is contributing to climate change. But we also need to understand that during the COVID time, we have a lots of resource of food only, and we were happy to stay at home and eat. So we need to develop a robust formula where we need to separate this ideology of food is being major contributor of climate change. Can we move the slide? Thank you. Okay, so how we have improved in our local context, and how we were able to generate around 300,000 USD, and recently we got 10,000 USD from a UK foundation. How we improve this, and how we started collaborating on a national level, regional level, and so right now on an international level. So first of all is to build a partnership and networking. We need to identify the relevant funding resources, is to establish relationship through our networks, event, conference, online platform, by aligning our objectives, activities, and so. And how to enhance. We need to see how we can align the funding with our priorities, and then we can enhance our local initiative. See how our projects align with those funding, and then with a specific potential donor, we can reach to them, setting and understanding the goals of that criteria on a different funding resources, sites, and just we can tail all the proposal to address that specific identifying priorities, and so. Engage. So with local stakeholder, it's very important to build a partnership and collaboration locally with the people, those who are not interested at the first. So we build a movement, we start telling them why it is important, how it will be leading towards the next 5 years or 3 years or forever. We have to show a picture, what we are talking to, and how this small seed or plant will lead into a tree of fruit or into a tree of vegetable. Okay, so again, with networking, we need to enhance our communication. We need to develop a strong presentation online. At this moment, when we are growing and working on a Zen platform, we need to build a social media platform. It's very easy. Everyone can do that. We just have to take a picture, share our thoughts in our any language, and try to improve them on a daily basis, weekly basis. Try to reconnect with people, those who are active around them. Try to use that other source of social platform, like using hashtag, using other active tools, those who are active, like TikTok. We got some very good response to TikTok also. So there was one foundation, those who want to do a capacity development project with us within only TikTok for agriculture, in agriculture sector. So although TikTok is not active in India, but we have this from some other country, and they help us out. So how we strength. So when we talk about the strength, it needs to be on impact measurement and reporting of mechanisms. We need to very localize. We need to be very establish a robust formula where we can measure and build a report mechanism to track, and try to be as much as transparent you can be. And just very interesting fact, through Nisarg Foundation, it's a Vikrant Foundation, we generated 300,000 through a concept called NRI. We got in touch with every NRI, those who are based in US, and those who are from India and based in US. So we generated those funds, and directly those funds we moved to India with zero accountability and tax. So we, so it's a bit quite long, so we can just move it to mobilizing finance and fund global resource. So just in short. So yeah, again, the research and identification, we have a platform within the World Food Forum itself. There is a recent grant called Transformative Research Challenge, and with that we have funding around 200,000 USD. And not with the funding, we are also promoting an action called Global One Health, and you will also be able to present your research at the World Food Forum stage. It will take place on 16 to 19. My colleagues from World Food Forum can also elaborate more on that. But again, this will not be a forum where you can present your research, but we are trying to build a concept where we are bringing every financial institution, including World Bank, African Development Bank, and whatsoever you can call, and there will be right there. So try to build a momentum from this day till October. So whenever you are there, and we also will try to bring more opportunity how you can attend that, but whenever you are there, try to bring networking, try to connect with them. We will also provide more opportunity for more youth, women, and people, those who are working on agriculture transformation, so to connect with them. Again, understanding the priority, like I already said, and how you can understand the priorities apart from funding. There are also many funding like Climate for Youth Innovation, and then we from Nisarg Foundation is also working to generate more fund. At present, we are working to mobilize around 500 USD. We did this before in last year through a program called Road to Sustainability, and then under Road to Sustainability, we deliver those funds. And then this year, we are still mobilizing fund, maybe around November or after COP28, we'll able to bring this up. Again, so we have very less time, just to very quick. Can we just move to the just last part? Okay, before that. Okay, so yeah, okay, so we build a very robust formula, like I said, and then we are generating fund. Yesterday also we generate like a 2,000 USD fund. You might be thinking it's very less, but if you think in a way where you can promote the project on a global scale, you will be able to receive more fund with that funding. And we also keep on working on innovation. In the first picture, you will see there is a nursery. It's an oval-shaped nursery. We have developed this, an oval-shaped nursery that receives 50% of sunlight during daytime. So if you guys interested, we can just talk on this later. So yeah, with this, we have impacted more than 100 farmer family. That was around 3,000 to 4,000 of people, and then we have grown with this project more than 300 food sapling, and that contributed in our food security and extra income resources. And okay, so we are running out of time, but yeah.
Cut you off. Thank you so much. We will have some chance later because there will be a Q&A session. So if you have any specific questions to Vikrant, please keep them for afterwards, and we will get some chances. And I'm sure, Vikrant, you're going to be around for a little bit longer and to share some more of your very impressive solutions. Moving on to Loureen Akinyi Awuor. She is the Chief of Staff and Head of Partnerships at the Kenyan National Farmers Federation, KNAF. She's also a doctoral researcher. She is a farmer. She researches around aflatoxins, and please don't ask me exactly what that is. She will know, for smallholder farmer households. She's been a part of many different training opportunities. She's been at the Sorbonne in Paris. She's an advisory group member of the Meaningful Participation of Women in UNFCCC negotiations. She chairs the thematic working group on access and benefits sharing and traditional knowledge on agrobiodiversity and agroecology in Kenya. And as I said, she's a horticultural farmer herself in Kenya, and a very proud moment for us at the Ban Ki-moon Center, also one of the cohorts for our online training for adaptation for young women from Africa. So very happy to be on the stage with Loureen and handing over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. And I am not very used to speaking with a presentation made, because it restricts you to what you had planned to say, and then something new comes up, but we will go over it. So my presentation is on women farmers in Kenya, and mine is a story, just to boggle our minds and see where we go from here. So we can just, this is an outline, so we can, yeah, thank you. So the agriculture landscape in Kenya. One of the key things that I always say about agriculture in Kenya is that it's very political. You cannot speak about agriculture without the politics. And it's what our politicians dangle when they want votes. So that tells you that it's very important, yeah? So agriculture contributes about 26% directly and 27% indirectly to our GDP. That's huge. And of course, it's key to our food and nutrition security. It's one of the key employment areas of our country. You can name it. But then it also provides 80% of the livelihoods for the people in the rural areas of Kenya, which is huge as well. And of course, our export is also, most of it come from agriculture. So we can go to the next. The challenges are, I don't think there's any African country that has different challenges. So I would just say the challenges will be, of course, the government's suboptimal support. We don't invest as much into agriculture. It gives so much, but we don't invest as much. Of course, poor land use practices, limited availability to enhancing technologies or production technologies. But then one of the key things is also declining soil quality. So we are so used to, actually ours is not very monoculture, but in Kenya we plant two things. We do maize because it's our staple, and then we do beans, and we wait for the next season. And what that does is the productivity keeps going down. So what we do is every single time you add fertilizer, the productivity is going down. The next time, if you had 2 kgs of fertilizer, you get to 4 kgs. So it's just a cycle of poor yields, more fertilizer, which are synthetic, of course. And then there is a bit of regressive gender dynamics, which we are actually going to talk about after this. And then, of course, everyone keeps telling the youth that agriculture is where your employment is going to come from. But then how? And that is the question that I'm not answering today. I'm not a young person today, I'm a woman today. And then, of course, the other thing is the effects of changing climate. And I mean, we can talk day and night about it. So we can go to the next. The context, just to give you an overview of how it looks like. So our agricultural production, 60 to 80% of it is by women labor, the labor force that comes from women. And then the women in Kenya produce about 60 to 80% of the food that we eat. So that's a huge amount. But then when we're talking about agriculture, then the question of inequalities come in. And for women, it's diverse. The challenges are too numerous to think about today. So the first thing is property ownership. Agriculture and land is one thing. But me, as a woman, I will never own land. Land is inherited, yeah? So when land is inherited, the heir to the land has to be male. So there is no, at any one point, that I will own land, except if I have a purchasing power to buy it from somewhere else. So you cannot expect me to produce in a land that I don't own. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but that is what it is. And then the other thing is inequalities on input services, on labor. I provide the labor for the land, but the income for the land is decided by someone else or is also taken in by someone else. Information, knowledge, and education. Well, at least we are trying as Kenya, but the idea always is the male child has better chances of getting education, of getting, going the extra mile. And then what happens is the first thing that comes to your mind when you are female, you are socialized to know that your first job is on the care of the family. That takes a lot of time. And most of the programs that we actually have also don't take that into consideration. So you bring a program, it's a policy discussion. And you call people in between 11 to 3. Women won't be there. Why? Because they're the ones who care for the house. They're the ones who do the house chores. They're the ones who are going to actually, most of livestock production labor is done by women in most communities. So those are just some inequalities that we can talk about. We can mention quite a number of them: financing, extension, technology. The disparities are too numerous. But then I just wanted to delve a little bit on the land issue. Currently in Kenya, only about 5 to 6% of land is owned jointly by women. That is not one person, but a number of women coming together and owning land. And then only 1% is owned by a woman alone. You can see the disparities, it's out of this world. And then on finance access, we have about, the issue is most women are denied credit because one, they have low savings. I mean, it's a day at a time. They have existing debts. That means you cannot get another loan. Of course, their credit history, they are defaulters. Lack of collateral. Land is a big collateral in Kenya. So if you don't own land, that means you don't have collateral. So we can go to the next. So I'll just talk a little bit about the role of women in Kenya in adaptation. So the first thing we have to note that the climate crisis is not gender neutral. It affects women and girls more. So anytime we are talking about this, it is something that should be at our minds. But then what are the women of Kenya that we work with do? Number one, they are the most powerful agents of change. If you want to introduce something, especially in agriculture, and if you want it done, introduce it to the women. For men, it has to make a lot of sense economically before it makes sense the other way. For women, it has to make sense nutritionally and in sustainability before it makes sense any other way. So if you want to introduce something in agriculture, make it to the women. Women are the ones who have the indigenous knowledge. They have been the ones practicing agriculture all through. I mean, if it's adaptation, they're the ones who know really what is happening, how to do it. They're the ones who know what to plant where, when. And then, of course, maybe just to also say that if you include women, especially in climate action, you will see changes. We can go to the next just so that I tell you what that means. Is that in Kenya currently, our cabinet secretary is female. We are driving a lot. If there's an African country that is driving a lot about climate action, it's Kenya right now. So that tells you what a woman can do. And then actually, when we were incorporating the National Climate Change Action Plan, the cabinet secretary then in 2016 was also female, and she really pushed for it. But then the question is, we really have quite a number of very good frameworks. The question is, then what? And that is where we all struggle, not just as a country, but I believe even globally, even in these climate change discussions. We have frameworks, but no one wants to implement them. So that is a question that we all have to go through. The next slide, please. So we have quite a number of sources of finance. I mean, if you go out there and Google finance in climate change, there's numerous of them, right? We can mention some of them, even if you waking up in the morning. But then the climate finance landscape is very complex. If we want to make it work for a woman deep down in a rural Kenyan setup, it doesn't work. But then the other question is, some of them do not have the capacities to even, find how to access them. Some of them don't know even the opportunities happen. But then when we're talking about sources of finance, we have to ask ourselves, how do we raise finance to the scale of meeting that challenge? How do we use it efficiently? How do we ensure transparency? That kind of, there are quite a number of questions that are really still not clear. Not clear to me, maybe not clear to everyone else, but maybe we need to talk about those. The next slide, please. Okay, and then the final place is, how do we increase women access to finance? And the first thing is, all finances should be gender responsive. So we have to be very specific. If we have to go the extra mile, then we have to be very context also specific. We have to have the Kenyan, the African system in mind, the Asian system in mind. And then the other thing is, we don't need middlemen to access finance, which is exactly what is happening. As the Kenya National Farmers Federation, we have to have someone else up there to help us access a finance. What that does is, half of it, unfortunately, I would say, is used to fly the other organization that is in between to come to the place. yeah, which is a lot of money. Sometimes it will make much more sense to put it. But it's a question of how do we do it? And then we have to have, of course, comprehensive data. We actually don't have data on access, what exactly is happening out there. So we need to have that data to inform decisions. We have to have women on the table. They have to really tell us the issues so that we put the money where it really matters the most. We have to build their capacities. Of course, we have to also have a national system of how women can access finance nationally or subnationally. But then maybe we also have to have a transparent kind of financing so that everyone knows what exactly is happening. I'm done. So the last thing is I just want to tell you what KENAF is doing in a minute. What we do is build capacities. We have very dedicated platforms for women. We call it the National Women Summit, which is basically a platform for women to engage and to build network, because your network is your net worth. If you meet women in the room, they change your perspective, the only small room that you had. So those are some of the things that we do at KENAF. And yeah, but the final thing is I would really wish that we stop looking at farmers or women or youth as beneficiaries. Let them be partners in whatever you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Loureen. And actually, this is something that we heard. We heard a few days ago about the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, coming up in September. The change of narrative that they want to see is like seeing Africa not as the continent of challenges, but of opportunities and solutions. So that's something that we could take forward there. Thank you so much. Coming now to our final speaker, Ms. Annira Busch, who is the Senior Policy Officer at the BMZ. That's the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. I would know it in German, but the English one I have to read. She is a part of the team on food and nutrition security, the global food policy, fisheries, and in charge of the portfolio for rural youth employment in agriculture and food. She has previously worked for GIZ in different capacities around democratization, good governance, prevention of violent extremism, and biosecurity, and has also worked in Morocco for a few years. Tunisia. Damn it. Sorry, in Tunisia. But over to you, and we would like to hear a little bit more about what the German government is doing in support of youth and women.
Thank you so much for having invited me, and I'm quite honored to be here with two very active youth representatives. I'm also very honored that I'm still considered as a youth representative. Thank you, Katrin, for that. So I think we've heard a lot about the context, and I only have 10 minutes. I could talk a lot about the context. I could talk a lot about why youth and women have so many challenges in agriculture and food systems. There is the land access issue. There is the malnutrition aspect, that women suffer more from malnutrition than men, and that this gap has actually increased during COVID, which is quite traumatic. That agriculture is not very attractive to youth. That's quite a problem, and you were facing that, Loureen. How do we actually get youth into the agricultural sector? It's a very difficult thing. Youth have problems entering the employment market as such, so how to get them into agriculture if it's not even attractive. So all of these context issues, we could talk quite a lot about that, but I just want to, as the third speaker, give you some responses to what the two colleagues have raised here. And I want to, in my presentation, tell you a bit about what my ministry does. So the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. I will talk about BMZ in the following because it's easier than always pronouncing the whole name. And I will talk about a bit of budget, about our priorities, also trends that we have incorporated into our work, because of course we also react to what is going on in the world. And then I will give you some project examples in the end. Let me start by our political priorities. So when my minister, Svenja Schulze, got into office 2 years ago, she set 4 priorities, basically, and one is about global health. The second one is about poverty, inequality, and hunger. So everything that concerns Leave No One Behind. We have a political priority number 3 on just transition, and quite new political priority on feminist development policy. And then we have flight and migration and digitalization as 2 topics that the minister said we have to take another angle to. Then we had a conservative minister before that, and just to approach that from another angle. So when we look at the 4 priorities, and we go to the next slide, when I was preparing the presentation for today, I was thinking perfect 3 of the priorities completely match to what I want to talk about today. So Leave No One Behind, poverty, hunger, inequality, feminist development policy, and just transition actually built this triangle with a lot of interconnections that we have to be aware and have to take into consideration when working on these issues. When we go to the next slide, I have put you a citation from our State of Secretary, Jochen Flassbart, that he was just uttering at the International Green Week in January. And I think when you read it, it becomes quite clear that the stance of my ministry is really that we are very far away from a sustainable transformation of agriculture and food systems. And that is why we are so very hard working on transforming our agriculture and food systems, because that is very much important if we want to continue nourishing the world population, the growing world population in the next years. So just before we go into the budget numbers, not all of you might know what the BMZ does. So obviously, as the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, we coordinate the German development policy, and we work with 65 bilateral partners, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa, India and Kenya, of course, being 2 of them. But we also work in lots of multilateral fora. I think that's clear, and for the food and nutrition sector, that is, for example, WFP, FAO, the Committee on World Food Security, etc. So also very much engaged in multilateral fora. So when we look into our work as concerns agriculture and food systems, we have about 2 million euros per year that we spend in food security and rural development. We have a budget of about 12 billion euro per year, so you can see that 2 billion out of that is quite such a number, quite a high number. And when we look at our employment portfolio, it's even more. We have 3.5 billion euro that we spent on that each year. And out of the employment projects, we have 40% that actually address youth. But when we did, I just did a little analysis, and I realized that only 6% of these projects then actually address youth in rural areas. We can talk about the reasons in the discussion. But yeah, of course, urban centers still create more jobs for youth, and that's basically the reason why it's so hard to address rural youth. And when we look at the 3rd topic, gender equality, that is actually something that we try to mainstream into all of the projects that we have. The recent analysis is that about 94% of our projects actually mainstream gender equality, and that 6% of the project that we have gender equality as the main objective. So they're very much center on, for example, working with female organizations. That would be a project that has gender equality as a main objective. Where do we work? So we have a special initiative which is called Transformation of Agriculture and Food Systems, through which we channel about 1/3 of the funds that we have for agriculture, rural development, and food security. And you can see that it's mainly in sub-Saharan Africa, but also, as I was mentioning, India, Vietnam, Laos, and the greener the countries are, the more projects of the special initiative we have there. You can see that India is quite green, Kenya is also very green, Madagascar, but also the Sahel region, for example, in Burkina Faso, we have projects on rural youth employment, and then Zambia and Malawi. If we go to the next slide, I wanted to show you how do we react to global trends. I mean, obviously, the climate crisis is what we are all here for today. I was already talking about the transformation of agriculture and food systems that becomes more and more important, and that is one of the priorities that we thrive for. So really transforming agriculture and food systems into more sustainability, into more resilience, so that when the next COVID shock, the next economic shock comes, local agriculture and food systems are more resilient to that. And on the employment side, of course, green jobs, so also involving decent work, become more and more important. And then, as I was saying, our minister has launched a feminist development policy, which means that we try to really work on this transformation as regards gender equality as well. And that, of course, is quite a hard task because we have to tackle the underlying stereotypes that that are there, and really also trying to work on changing this the underlying balances of power that are very unjust at the moment. If you just go back, because I wanted to say that we always work in alignment with international processes, I think that's clear. I've just named a few. So Committee on World Food Security, being the main fora under the head of the FAO that we engage in. Then, of course, everything that concerns the United Nations Food Systems Summit. There is a stocktaking moment coming up this year in Rome. And, of course, everything that concerns the SDGs Summit that is coming up this year. We work in G7 and G20 in the Nutrition for Growth and Scaling Up Nutrition movement, and many other fora, but that's just to name some examples. Let's go into the project examples to just give you a little practical insight. So first one is on women empowerment and gender transformative approaches. What we basically do there, and Loureen, you were mentioning that women are usually engaged in care work, and we try to also get men involved more in that. So, for example, we have cooking lessons for men to actually show them how nutrition is also important for men as a task, not only for women. And we have in Malawi, for example, these father-to-father groups where men exchange about stereotypes that are connected to care work and to taking care of the family. Then one example on aquaculture. Aquaculture is quite a new field, and that is why we use the opportunity to get women into the field. So it's not physically such a hard or such a demanding task, so women can actually do that, and has worked quite well because these women that are engaged in aquaculture, you can see the picture, the second one, where they do that, has actually given them more regular access to revenue.
I think I have to cut you off because I know you have to leave on time.
Yeah, let me just one more minute, because I wanted to show you an example from Burkina Faso on green shops for rural youth. What we've actually done there, you can see that in the pictures, we have worked on composting, so organic waste, a composting venue. So the youth are engaged in that, and they're composting, for example, waste of mangoes. So that has been quite successful because they could create their own business. I think that they're 10 at the moment. And they actually, you were talking about fertilizer and how it gets more expensive, and you have to use more and more. So they actually produce this organic fertilizer now that they can sell, and they've produced some jobs. Last example, just on climate adaptation from Togo, where we have trained solar technicians to actually establish sustainable and climate-friendly basic energy services, and that also creates income for those solar technicians that are more recognized by the local community now as well. So this is also a project that is centered in local areas.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Annira. As I said, Annira has to leave on time. Yeah, yes, if you want to, sorry. Sorry. So we are going into a rapid Q&A session now, which means go straight to your questions, no introductions. And if you want to ask, I would like to prefer or give priority to questions to Annira, because she definitely has to leave in about 3 to 4 minutes. So does anybody have a specific question to Annira? I see a hand right there. I can only take 2, so maybe this gentleman as well, he was also second here, and yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Kevin Osa from Togo, and it has been a very interesting section, because I don't know if you have an idea about Africa, but the agricultural sector is the most important sector when we are talking about economical development, impact on rural communities, because most of, like 60% of the population in rural area in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, are
I want to ask you to come to your question, please.
Okay, so the question is about the last presentation that the colleague from the GIZ was presenting. I don't know if it's BMZ or GIZ. How do you make sure that the project is very impactful on the ground? Because sometimes it's very good to have an idea about what was going on the ground, but how do you make sure that the communities on the ground are those who are benefiting the action of the project, and also it is also a life-changing opportunity for them? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we'll take this question as well, really quickly, and then we go let Annira answer.
Thank you. I'm Christine Kaya. I'm a woman member of parliament from Uganda. I'm also the shadow minister for water and environment in Uganda. And I'm very happy about BMZ's political priorities. Many people fear to share the political ambitions. I am looking at your 4th priority of climate protection and global energy transition, just transition, and you exist in many of African countries. What is your take on the subscription to the Energy Charter? Because we are really perturbed by whether to subscribe or not, and the effect, will it help us really fulfill our commitments as far as the Paris Agreement implementation is concerned? The other one is on my fellow sister, Kenyan. Thank you very much. But we are looking for motivation for our women to practice whatever has been approved. Which motivation should we have? Because we have shared some of the best adaptation practice, but the motivation, especially economic, it is very difficult for somebody to begin sorting plastics when she doesn't have lunch. So we would like the linkage to markets of the agricultural produce. So this motivation, the economic motivation, to help our women come up. Thank you.
Thank you. So Annira, if you want to, and then over to Loureen.
Thank you very much to the colleague from Togo. BMZ, of course, is not implementing on the ground. We have our implementing organizations, for example, GIZ being the biggest, and sustainability is at the heart of all of our activities, obviously. So what we always do is, when we work with the local community, is not that we just go there and say, we have a nice project for you, take it or leave it. We try to really implement them into the project development, if that's possible. And then, of course, the project implementation. And I was talking about training of solar technicians. That, of course, does not only implement that we train people, but usually we have this concept of training of trainers, for example. So those people that have been trained will then train other people to make that more sustainable, because, yeah, I think we've learned a lot in development cooperation that single activities and intervention are not very sustainable. So we have all of these different activities to really to make it more sustainable, to also, when we realize in the middle of the project this is not going somewhere, then we will sit and take another direction. That's also something that we do, so we have this kind of learning culture, and I think that has been working well. And on just transition, to the colleague from Uganda, I'm not a just transition expert, but yeah, that's one of the priorities of the ministry, something that we are very fond of. You were asking about the energy charter, I think. That is not my field of experience, but we'll for example, what we do in the climate sector is we have these climate partnerships. We've also, at the last COP, launched this, or have been members of the Global Shield. So these are some activities that we do. If you want to know more, I can connect you some colleagues that work in the climate division. Thank you.
I actually thought it was not a question, but I'll answer anyway. Motivation, that's a hard one. But the first thing is we have to invest. Our governments actually have to invest in agriculture for it to work before we even go out. That is one way. And then we also, everyone has to be deliberate on outcomes. Because what I know and what I think we all know is that we are still focusing on outcomes 1 and 2. This number of women came to the meeting. This number of women, responded this way, and that's it. So we have to also be deliberate on moving from outcomes 1 and 2, and actually realizing the goals of the frameworks we have. It will be hard, but I think it's important that we focus on. Move from this notion of we met as a group of women, we talked, and they signed something, and we say that was it. So what is the outcome? If it is a policy, we have to go the extra mile to ensure it's implemented, and resources are also put into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Annira, for being with us today and for sharing your insights. Open to the room, please ask your questions. Hands up. Yes, there we got one.
Me? Okay. Okay, I'll try to make this fast. So Loureen, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So she mentioned the inequalities in Kenya regarding land ownership. So there's many women engaged in agriculture but not owning land, and therefore not always benefiting as much as men from food production. I have actually a question for Vikrant, because I don't want to assume this is true in India, but I think that it is also true that women are engaged in agriculture but not owning land. So could you elaborate on how these local initiatives, such as Agro Rangers, prioritize gender equality, how they target funds to women, and how they empower women, and how these initiatives are perceived by the local communities? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another question so we could collect? Yes, let's Vikrant answer until the microphone moves to the back. Vikrant.
Thank you. So sorry I missed your name. Okay. So when we started the flagship program to distribute the funding, the two main key points to distribute those funding was it should be delivered to youth, led by youth. At least 60% of the organization chart should be formed by youth. And then Agro Rangers is being formed by 7 youth on the chart, and then 4 of them are women, including 1 is indigenous, and then rest 2 are also in less than 27 years of old. So yeah, on the local level, how it's been taking up, we have taken a wasteland, and then we are working on that wasteland. In the 6th month only, we have converted that wasteland into a grass of 6 or 7 foot, and the community is taking it so good that they have offered us 90 acres of land. I'm not sure how much that will be in hectare, but the community has came forward to offer that land, and then government has also came us to not with the resources on finance, but on the resources to collaborate on FCRA, especially on FCRA, because we need that FCRA to get funding from international. So we have got previous FCRA with the local government. So it's going good at the moment. So yeah.
So maybe I can also explain what we do. One of the things that we do is, because our membership is single farmers as well as cooperative societies and small farm organizations. So for cooperatives, membership is in two. If you know how cooperatives work, is that they do a checker system. They pay after you brought your produce and stuff like that. So for each family, there has to be 2 members. Each family has an A and B. So when the checker system comes, the money goes both to the family member A, which is the man, and member B, which is the female. And then the other thing we do is, we do, an example is a silver pastoral system. We do tree tenure. So you own the land, it's okay. But the person, you sign to say that the female person owns the tree. So any produce from that tree goes to the woman. It's okay, what you have in your land is okay, but the tree tenure, that kind of thing. But then we have also developed, especially from our customary laws, we have quite a number of precepts going on in most of our law courts right now. Women are deciding to own land, inherit land as well. So we have good precedents, because a number of cases have been won by women, to say that the same way a male person owns the land, it will be divided depending on how many you are, whether male or female. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question in the back, and is there another question? Okay, then let's have that one, please.
Morning, everybody. Two-part question. Wanted to know, in terms of either country, if land grabbing was a major issue and how it was affecting everybody. And also, two, in terms of irrigation, understanding that water is a finite resource, how is that also affecting production?
That will have been our final question, so please also use this time to wrap up.
Yeah, I didn't heard the second one, Kelly, but first, it is an issue at the moment, but there is an initiative by government itself, so there is a benefit of 3% when the land is being transferred on a name of woman. So there is a change of and transformation coming of the land owner is woman itself. So it was previous year, but how things can move from women to men, but it's now been changing on ground. On the second, I didn't heard so. So on irrigation, it's again very challenging at the moment in India, and specific on a drought state, including Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. But we are working with few of the local institutions to provide sustainability irrigation resource. In our project itself, we have collaborated with ICA, International Solar Alliance. It's based in India, but it also works in most of the African country, around 90 plus maybe. So they are providing solar irrigation equipment with no fees, and so yeah.
So on the first question about land grabbing, I mean, I don't know about the others, but in Africa it's common, especially for the politicians. But for Kenya specifically, I could say that our courts have grown really well, to an extent that quite a number of cases that have gone to the court on land grabbing have gone back to the rightful owners. So that is something, of course, we are proud of, but it's a struggle, actually. On irrigation, our government has focused more on big projects, and big projects don't work because I'm not sure how, but the funds always run out before the big project becomes it. And what we are trying to work on right now is to work on small-scale irrigation. And that is what actually KENAF, as an organization, is trying hard to press on, small-scale irrigation, so that it's one farmer, one farmer per irrigation system or something like that. Then it makes much more sense. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much again. And with that, I would like to ask our final speaker, Dr. Lucy Wallace, to the floor. She's the Chief of Staff of EIT Food, one of the co-organizers, and she will try to summarize today's event for us. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Hi. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Thank you to all the amazing young people and women we've had speaking today, and also to the organising committee. This has been a really fantastic event. I'm not going to speak for very long. I'm going to speak for like 1 to 2 minutes, because actually my voice is not an important voice in the room. The important voices are the ones that you've already heard and that I want you to listen to and I want you to remember. So I'm just going to summarise a couple of the key points which I think we have heard today, and which that have come to me out of what I've heard today, but also what I've heard in the discussions that preceded this event. So firstly, the critical role that youth, farmers, women and marginal groups have to play in helping with climate mitigation and actually driving climate mitigation. And that's really, really important. Secondly, the importance of funding the projects, like the projects that we've heard today, and providing sustainable investment and innovative investment opportunities to be able to do that. Thirdly, and I think this is one of the most important things, is the need for multi-stakeholder collaboration to help us cooperate and to remove those barriers that some of the marginal groups that we've been speaking about today face. And this is absolutely key to ensure that we have a just transition and we enable those that are the most vulnerable to be able to adapt, to move forward with regards to climate change. So what can actually we do in the room here? And this is a really, really important point. I think we can listen. I think we can collaborate. And I think we can evolve, enable and make space for young people, for women, for marginalised groups at the table. And this is something we should all definitely be doing. What I would just like to leave you with today is to think about your place in this and what's important for you within this. And I think I want to think about how, like myself, this is what I think about, how much of an ally I am and how much of an ally I should be, what I should be doing to enable these people who have spoken here today and who are not just young people, they are professionals, they are young professionals, that's a really key point, and how we need to work with them and make that space at the table so that they can be really part of the solution, because definitely that's what I'm seeing that they are. Thank you very much, and I'd like to give all of them a round of applause, please.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I have nothing to add. I just want to thank you all for coming today. Thank you for asking very interesting questions. I'm sure some of our panelists will be around for a little bit to answer further questions if you have any and feel more comfortable talking one-on-one. But again, thank you to both, and Annira, who's already left us, but thank you to Loureen, thank you to Vikrant, for being here today and for sharing your experiences. And I agree with Lucy, these are very professional people. We're not talking just get the youth here to hear the youth voices. They know what they're doing, they have the solutions. And if we remember the Mentimeter before, the innovation definitely coming from young people more than from anybody else. So thank you very much. Follow us all of the organizers that you see here on social media, to be in touch and to learn more about what we are doing. And with that, I would like to close this event and thank you very much for coming.